Self-improvement with Julie Hilsen.
Dear God, Goddess, Creator, Universe, thank you for bringing Tammy and I together for this recording. We're creating this space for you to work through us and for us. I call in my guides, my Akashic team. I invite Tammy's team to come forward, and I feel that they are excited and clapping. Just this wonderful synchronicity that we have met, and I honor her journey. I honor her ability to share her gifts and her talents. And I'm just so excited to bring forth this message for the highest good. May it have the intensity it needs to reach the ears that need to hear and soften the hearts that need to soften. As we open our hearts up to live our life of love, however it looks on this day, to have grace for ourselves and those around us, and to help our dear earth to transmute things that don't serve us anymore and bring forth our highest good, eternal glory, our ability to find the divine in ourselves and the divine in others. And so it's my honor to collaborate. And I thank you, thank you, thank you, all the entities that collaborate and made this happen. I always forget at the end to thank you. So I'm thanking you in the beginning, and know that I am so honored to be part of this creation. So it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Life of Love, where we gather every week to bring forth a message for the highest good, and always take what serves you and leave what doesn't. We're so happy to have this community to share, to be open, to collaborate, and just get a little support through the bumps, and even celebrate the smooth sailing days, because they're all important and they're all part of our journey and grace. And, we're all going through a lot of transitions. And so when I was connected to Tammy Young, I was so excited, because she is really good at teaching people to connect to their loved ones, and to be inviting to what you can't always see or feel immediately, but to ask. And that's my biggest thing, is to ask. And I do want to celebrate a little bit, because I got some new equipment, and this is the first time I've used this new microphone, if you guys notice. And I got a cool little device that the microphone runs through. I can't even tell you the name of it, but I hope everyone enjoys the new and improved audio. And please share and subscribe, because I spent a lot of money on this. I'd like to make some money back, honestly. It's been a labor of love, my Life of Love podcast. I don't mean to divert from our topic today, but Tammy, welcome to this show. I'm so delighted to collaborate with you today.
Julie, thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, I know. I mean, you're a spiritual advisor. You've been a Reiki expert, and you've connected with dearly departed loved ones. And you even wrote a book about it, Afterlife Bonds: How Spirit Communication Turned My Grief into a Journey of Joy. So, wow. That's just a great lemons to lemonade story, right? You found a gift in your sorrow. And would you want to kick us off on this, just to describe what motivated you to say, yeah, I'm gonna teach other people to connect to their loved ones, and maybe some background as to what drove you to this?
Thank you. I appreciate that question. That's a big one, right? So I wrote this book because I'm kind of jumping in the middle here, but I wrote this book because even as a medium and a psychic and doing readings for other people, I felt like I was kind of in this space where like people would come to you and be like, okay, I really would like to talk to Aunt Sally, or, my mother, father, whatever. And there is just usually this general acceptance of, okay, I know they've passed. So I was not always privy to the grief path that they had taken to end up in my chair in a situation where they wanted to now try to, connect. So what happened with me, I wrote my book about finding a brother that I didn't know I had, and then joyously being able to I have an existing brother. So now there's three of us. and just loved the idea that our family had just sporadically grown. But unfortunately, he was with us for only about 6 months and then he passed. And, there's obviously a part of me that was like already in a position to walk that path. But what I didn't realize was, and I didn't know some of his relatives, but as I got to know them, I saw them walk this journey of grief at the loss of our, for me, it was my brother. I didn't quite know how to help. And I wanted to help them understand that there is something bigger and greater past this sorrow that we all will go through called grief. And I didn't know how to do that. And so I was called to write this book and I just started writing and it was like, keep writing, keep writing. And I kind of got to a point where I thought, I'm sharing my story, but what do I do if people are in the middle of grief and I don't want to weigh them down. You know what I mean? I want them to have an opportunity to reach up for something better. How do I move through this situation? So at the end of every chapter, there are little exercises that you can take or leave or do later, just whatever, whatever stage you're in. But I put those there because I wanted people to kind of have the opportunity to work on their own intuition with the idea that maybe they could communicate with their loved ones on the other side. So that was my motivation to write that book. I know that's long-winded, but
No, I'm trying to connect the dots in my head. So your brother was a baby? He was alive 6 months and then passed? Or you said you didn't know you had a brother. Can you expand on that? Because I'm trying to connect the dots and it's
thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
I know I threw a lot in that little pot there. So I have an existing brother. So it was just the two of us, right? But, during the pandemic in 2020, we found out that we had a brother who is actually our oldest brother. He was born before either one of us were, but we didn't know. We didn't know that.
So he grew up in a different family.
A different family.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and then to backtrack a little bit, in 19, I was in a class, a mediumship class, really, with some other people enjoying it. And everybody was getting these psychic readings from this lady named Debbie Nicholson in the UK. And they said, she is spot on. She's so good. And they say, what? She's even donating the money to like the animal shelter. So of course, everybody jumped on to get a reading, right? So when it came my turn, she starts asking me about twins. She starts asking me about, other people or groups around me. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. And she says, well, there's a family you don't know about. And I was like, well, what? And I really thought, it's late in the evening, this can't be true. But she was very persistent. She's a very good, she was doing this through tarot. And she was very persistent with me. As much as I said no, she was like, nope, you got it coming at you. And I was just like, after she was so adamant with me, I really stepped back and I thought, wow, that is possible. And they said, this person's going to find you through DNA. Have you done your DNA? What? No. And that's how he found us, was through DNA. So
My goodness. So he reached out to you and your brother, and
yes,
you guys sort of reconnected, and then he passed with you. You had another brother for 6 months, and then
right. And then he passed. And then it was just my brother that's been with me always, he and I together, and really this is the story about a little bit about my background, but then it's also really be open to those things that march into your life and just put up the billboard, be open to that, because I looked at that and I thought, that is a possibility with sort of family history that we had. So then I had to sort of out myself as working as a psychic medium because I hadn't really done that, because everybody in my life was like an engineer, right? So I hadn't really done that, but here I was. We didn't know who was going to get an email, a phone call. I mean, we didn't know. So I kind of had to share it with my existing brother and my two boys. We're all engineers. So yeah, that really, that opened me up and changed my life, whether I wanted that or not.
and you are not the first engineer, scientific mind that I've had
Yeah.
who's gone to spirituality. So it's amazing how there's sacredness in numbers and patterns, and they're all around us all the time. And so maybe it's that initiation, understanding how numbers work, and then we're all one, so it's another avenue to get to that divinity. I adore that. And so then you are like wanting to help people get through what you went through. And well, I'm just wondering, does your brother come through? Is he beside you? I mean, could he be collaborating with us right now, trying to help?
Yes, always, right?
Yeah.
I have my brother Matt on this side,
Uh-huh.
and I have my grandmother Yulila on this side. And anytime we sit down to do spiritual work, they're absolutely there. Anytime during meditation or if I'm automatic writing, I know that they're with me. And that is, it's funny, I want to say a sense of strength is given to me in that way because I know that they're there. All I have to do is reach out, it's just a breath away. So, and that's one of the things that came through in the book is this idea of we think that there is this sort of we're here and then we're gone. But in reality, Matt has come through and said, it's just like opening the door and just like you just go to another room and then it's just like you open the door. It's no big deal, and he constantly tells me as an engineer, he will say to me, get out of your head. You know, why are you making more of this than it is? It's like, this is just a very natural thing that humans do. It's just your choice to participate. I'm like, oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you're right. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a matter of intention and asking.
Yeah. And one of the things I do want to add is that my mediumship prior to Matt's passing was very like serious and very like, I guess the word serious really encompasses it for me.
Hmm.
And as Matt began to pass, which was kind of a process for him, suddenly, if I was in meditation or automatic writing in the middle of like maybe a serious, maybe even a tearful, event, all of a sudden I would get these goofy characters popping into my mind. Or I would be writing something and I would just get a silly word that like, I don't use that word. I was noticing that he was making himself known in the most easy way, right? Just kind of when you're in that space of reception. And he was making himself known. And so once I sort of acknowledged that, then it really became the relationship that grew out of that, which I mean, there are things that happen in that book that there's no way are coincidental. It has to be organized. And yeah, I'm thrilled to have had that experience.
It's so wonderful. It's so magical. And yet I have to acknowledge that the timing of him connecting with you and then you guys maintaining a relationship. And I love the fact that you've had the message and you noticed it wasn't from you. And so when you write it, when you acknowledge it, you reinforce it so that communication line gets stronger. It's sort of like a neural connection where things get myelinated the more you do it. That's what I'm seeing is that when you say yes and then you acknowledge, yes, I heard that message, then it gets easier and easier and it's lighthearted. I think that so many times in spirituality in the past, or even like with religious ceremony or whatnot, anything of the spiritual realm was so ritualized and stark, and you had to honor and you had to protect. And the more and more I'm learning, it's like your light vibration, your intention that everything is for good and that you're looking for the good, and you don't need to protect yourself because you're at this vibration and this lightness that anything that doesn't serve you is just, it doesn't even exist because you're wanting such goodness and you want connection and your purpose to help other people through, you finding your answers and channeling the answers with your book writing is just glorious. And you spent 4 years writing it, you said, and publishing it. So I'm sure you had volumes and volumes of automatic writing trying to figure out, okay, how do we distill this? How can I make this digestible? So it's just, I'm sure you have like 5 more books and all those automatic writings.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have your own journey, but during the course of things, when you just suddenly know, like, I feel like I knew early on when I found out I had this brother that I didn't know about. It was such a joyous coming together that I couldn't help but sit down and write about it and just how it made me feel and all that. But then there was this thread that sort of kept me writing. And then when things turned a little different, I felt like my guides were like, nope, now it's really time to write. So it's interesting. I mean, we have this journey, but we don't always know what the outcome is, right? And I think being open to I want to say the best and highest outcomes for things really puts you in a situation to really view like what's going on. And sometimes when we don't know, for me, it's just writing. I just start writing because I have to like funnel through that and try to just place it somewhere that's not so maybe chaotic. Yeah.
And it might help you get out of your head because you do, when you're writing, you go from your head, and I'm picturing like it goes past your heart into your arm. Like you're connecting these things, these areas, I want to say, these parts of yourself. So it is a way to get out of your head. If you let it, if you say, I want this to come from my heart, I'm going to write. It's
Yes.
a cognitive thing, but I'm going to write from my heart. And it's the whole honoring the journey. I mean, the first part of meeting Matt was joyful, and then you had to say goodbye. And instead of getting stuck in the sorrow part of it, you transmuted it into service and helping and reconnection and purpose. So it's
Yeah. And one thing I want to say about that too is once it was clear to me that he really was going to be saying goodbye, I felt like I kind of switched from, hey, I'm your sister to, okay, now we're on a spiritual level and you and I are going to walk together. And I just kept reaching out to him, and saying, before he passed, he was in coma for quite a while. And I just keep reaching out to him and telling him, guess what? I'm prepared to do this with you. Guess what? You and I can work together. So let's do this. Let's make sure that we connect. And before he went into that coma, I actually had the chance to meet him and just talk with him. So I was thrilled for that because, we weren't really traveling in 2020. And so but I went anyway. And I was just like, I need to be face to face, nose to nose with you because we need to know each other. So I mean, I didn't know, are we going to join together in the afterlife? Will I see him? Will I, and the beauty of it was that there was something from that meeting that he got, I definitely got, but he got something too. And he talks about that. In writing this book 2 years later, after he had passed, I wanted to know from a third party who wasn't involved if I could have a reading, if Matt would join us. And it really is those readings that offer information and really more like depth to what was Matt's life like without a father, right? It's kind of like your life review. And he comes back and looks at that. But also he talks about the relationship he and I had, however brief it was. And that moment when we looked at each other's eyes, like what happened in that moment. And I mean, it was astounding to me. It's like to have spirit come back around and talk to you about that. That was priceless. That was priceless. Um, yeah, there's just so much that goes on that we don't talk about. I think that's the biggest thing. And maybe we don't know who to talk about it with. That's really the point to my book, like making the conversation more, I want to use the word pedestrian. I don't know if that's the right word, but
normalizing it, or
normalizing.
yeah,
Yes.
and the validation. I feel what you're saying because I know that we have these magical connections with people, and we might foo-foo it or gloss it over, but they are powerful and they're timeless. And that's what I hear you saying. And so
And what's funny
knowing,
is he
yeah,
describes it as a spark between
yeah,
the two of us. And we're both in the engineering environment, right? So I'm an electrical engineer, but he was an electrician. So the idea that it would be described in that way is so unique for me, you know? So yeah, yeah.
Now, did you get the impression that he was into any energetics or spirituality, or
No,
when you met him, it was
no.
just like, "Hey, you're my estranged brother and let's connect." I'm assuming you're like half brother,
Yes.
half
He's a
sibling?
half brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when it was clear that he was, I mean, he was, stage 4, that this was gonna happen. And okay, all of a sudden I had a brain fart like,
Yeah, you
oh,
had
so
talked about if
yeah,
he was
so
spiritual before.
yes. And so when he said, and he was in a lot of pain and having to take a lot of meds and everything because he had glioblastoma, which is brain cancer.
That's the aggressive brain
Yeah.
tumor, yeah.
Yeah. 6 months. Boom. So I asked him if he knew anything about Reiki, and he said, "What'd you say?" So I kind of just asked him about that, and he kind of said, "I don't know what you're talking about." So I just kind of explained about, energetic healing, or at least something to try to make him more comfortable, and being able to do that at a distance if he was open to it. And he said, "Hey, yeah, I'll take anything I can get." Right. And he just kind of said, "Yeah, that'd be great, whatever." But in retrospect, he said that I was the only one that was able to talk to him in this way, in this manner. And I really thought, how interesting, right? I mean, I'm sure that's part of the grief process is when we haven't had those kind of conversations with people around us, and then we are facing a loss. That makes it even twice as hard. Like, where do you go with that? So, another reason for the book. So, yeah, so I was thrilled that I could be part of that journey for him, as he was for me, definitely.
It just brings up like a recent memory of my neighbor. He had cancer, and we weren't like go out to dinner neighbors, but he'd always be in his yard, and I'd walk by and he'd always have something funny to tell me. And, he'd be like, "Don't let your dog pee in my yard." And I'm like, "Okay, John, I won't let my dog pee in your yard." What I mean? And just like on a nice day, he'd always be out bumbling around in his yard and always have like a fun story. And he always tell me something about his baseball career, or, whatever, just like a neighbor. And I'd see him less and less, and he had cancer, and I wasn't able to spend any time with him toward the end because his family's very private and I wanted to respect them. But I started asking to connect with him. And this sounds crazy, but I said in my dreams, I was like, I just want him to know he's not alone and everything's going to be okay. Cause he told me he was scared to die, and it was a tough thing. And he read my book. He's like, "I have some questions about your book," cause he wasn't sure about what was going to happen when his body gave out. And I was like, you live on, you do, you're eternal. And he had questions. And so I was just like, let's connect. And so I had some lucid dreams where, I was able to connect with him, and I believe it was reality, even though it's a dream. Like, energetically, I felt less sorrow when I was able to do that because, it's just a situation I couldn't control. But yet, I'm not family, but I still love him because he's just this bright light. It's, just like everyone I come in contact with, I love them. Like, I love people. I love animals. I get sad if a tree, is suffering. It's like it's just part of my field. And so it was really, really tough on me. And even when he died, I didn't really know he died for like 3 days later. So I just kept energetically saying, I support you. You're not alone. Your family's around you and they love you, and just giving him. But it did help me get through that. And so I know everyone has to deal with death in their own ways. But just to give a perspective of something like that, like there's so many things we can't control, but we can surrender and say, you can ask yourself, how can I show up? What are the opportunity? What are the chances or the growth areas, like, because it hurt to not be able to go in there and say goodbye to him. Because in my family, you sit around and you hug people and you're just like, even if they're a coma and they're drooling all over the place, it doesn't matter. You're there.
Yeah.
But that's how we deal with death. And I respect that not everyone's like that. So, like, it's this coming to terms and knowing what you can do, what's available. So I love that you're offering and normalizing the idea that it doesn't have to be this private thing that is, shameful, or, it's a beautiful transition and we can still connect. I want to shout it from the rooftops because it transforms your relationships. You don't have to be as sad. Of course, you're not going to get that hug, but I have felt energetically, like when my uncle passed, I was like, I'm going to miss your hug. And I did feel a warmth on my shoulder.
I love that.
So there's chances. Like, I'm so
Absolutely.
excited about your book.
Thank you. And the thing is, wherever you're at in this journey, like, I think all you have to do is reach out and ask for connection. And I feel like they will, in one way or another, get to you, right? Whether it's you seeing a symbol or smelling something, or maybe seeing like the phrase they used to always use all of a sudden pops up somewhere, even if it's on the radio, or, whether it's being able to feel a touch on the shoulder, or if it's seeing or smelling, or in some way, that they're there for you. And I guess having people say, you know what? I know my mother was with me this morning because, I smelled her perfume, or I know dad was here because, his favorite song came on the radio. I just think you can have confidence in that. You actually can.
Right. Like when I think about my mom's dad, I smell gasoline because he always was working on like some farm equipment.
Yeah.
And his hands smelled like gasoline all the time. And so, yeah, and whether it's just an ingrained memory or if that's their spirit, like it's a connection. And when you acknowledge it, you're building up that neuron, that connection. And I do think the veil is thinning, like more and more. And some people, I'm just brainstorming, some people believe that the cardinals, like birds, represent loved ones.
Yes.
And, multiple birds. It's just, if you open up and ask. And to me, I think the hardest thing for in this day and age is just shutting things down and just being, because that's when you get the messages, when you stop being so busy.
Absolutely. Being able to just sort of, it's funny. When I first started meditating, I remember having this feeling of not being sort of outwardly focused on everything, but pulling that sort of into my center and looking to connect with my own center. Like, that immediately calms me down, because it's kind of like I'm removing all the noise around me and coming to a calm center. And I think that's invaluable, because I feel like I've used that to try to hone into, maybe, am I not feeling well? Or, of course, I use that in psychic and mediumship quite a bit, in order to just be centered and allow spirit to come. Like, those are just important things. So, yeah,
That's beautiful.
meditation. It's good.
Yeah, just
It's
to
good for
shut it
everything.
down. Like books or different music, it's beautiful. So I do need to ask. We're coming up on our time, and I want to get to everything. You had mentioned something about hiking and running into Sasquatch, and that
Yeah.
sparked me because we in North Georgia, we're in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and even our Parks and Rec, they've started putting up Sasquatch like cutouts on the local trails, like you scan the Sasquatch that you saw, but so they're playing around with it, but there have been sightings, like, and so I just wanted to ask you for if you've ever considered coming to the North Georgia mountains to look for Sasquatch, or if you stay around your place.
I know, that's so funny. We kind of put that in there as tongue in cheek, because, I just love this investigative idea that we don't know everything that's out there, right? And one of my favorite shows is Expedition Bigfoot, right? So right
Okay.
now they're in Washington somewhere looking at these trails and all that kind of wonderful business. But yeah, I love the idea that we just don't know everything. So, yeah, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but, there's a bigger lesson there, right?
Right, right. And the more and more I'm around, I'm like, there's got to be portals. I mean, there has to be portals, and that it explains time travel and all these amazing things that are around us that we might not tune into because it's a little hard to wrap our heads around. But I love to play in the magic of what if. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to tongue in cheek talk about the Sasquatch too.
Yeah. Well, I love it because in this particular show, they have people that are like highly educated looking for Sasquatch, and they have been doing that now for 4 years. They have people with the best equipment doing all kinds of like radar and drones and all kinds of things. And it's really interesting. I think that they have found some very interesting evidence, but I think stitching it together in a sort of understanding of what is this, I think that's kind of where they're at. Because whether this is something that has been here even before humans, or this is something that, has evolved or figured out how to live here from another planet, whatever it is, um, yeah, I enjoy the journey. I enjoy just watching them do their thing. It's amazing.
That's so cool. I like it too. And I always had a dear affinity toward the Wookiees, and Star Wars. And
Yes,
it's not a coincidence I have a dog that I can cut her hair and she sort of looks like a miniature little Wookiee. She's just like
it's so cute.
when she's shaggy and she has like these human-like eyes. And I'm like,
So you
eh,
didn't choose Chewbacca?
well, I like Chewbacca. But I didn't like Chew. I get your wordplay. Well, that's funny because when we went to the breeder, she said all the female puppies were taken. But when we got there on the pick out your puppy day, she's like, well, there's a guy who had two females reserved, but he wasn't nice. So he doesn't get to pick from my puppies. So I really wanted a female dog because I've always had female dogs. And I'm the only girl in my family. So I'm always like, I need another girl to even out the feminine.
Yeah,
So I was excited to have the chance to pick from a female, but Chewbacca was one of the names that I had if we were going to get that male dog because he was a little bigger. But we fell in love with Sydney because she's got a little underbite and she was just so sweet that we were like, oh, Sydney is our dog. So I had to like circle back with a different name. And
I love that.
my sweet Sydney, she's something. But yeah, it's and these synchronicities and these gifts that we get, it's just like cherishing them and being part of our field is just amazing. And I knew that I love that breeder when she says, well, mean people don't get my dogs. It's like,
I love that. That's karma at its best, isn't it? Like, ooh, you better be nice.
yeah, which her story is a whole really wonderful story. She went through a divorce and she wasn't sure what she's going to do. And she ended up starting this dog breeding business. And she did it in a beautiful way where the dogs have families and they come and they breed. And then she takes care of the mothers when they're going through their labor and delivery. But it's not like she has a big kennel with a ton of dogs. She just has like a breeding and a birthing and a puppy center. And then they go back to their homes, which is really balanced and sweet.
Yes. Oh, I
Yes.
love that. I think that's, like you said, it's so much more balanced than, a breeding center kind of a thing where it's
Yeah.
puppy farm kind of. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes. I just feel like humanity is evolving to being more caring and concerned about all the life around us. And honoring the afterlife the way you do is just part of the whole picture and makes our time here all the more precious because if our loved ones come back and communicate with us, then we know that we're on a special path. Like this is part of our journey and it's very, very short, because I do believe our souls are eternal. I mean, did Matt say he has several lives? Have you connected into past lives with clients or do you have any insight into
I
that?
I have connected into my own past lives, which is really interesting. But before I talk about that, I also want to say that our pets will show up in readings. So, when we have the grace and the beauty of caring for pets that are part of our lives, they show up if they've passed. They'll show up in readings with other people, and it's remarkable to me because I haven't been in the past a big animal or dog person, and so if I would do a reading for someone and all of a sudden a dog would run through or come and stop and just sort of take a bow and be like, I'm here, and then leave. Like sometimes that's all they do is just to be recognized. And to be able to tell, wow, well, did your mother have this like little schnauzer type dog? Oh yes, Jojo. Oh, and this happens all the time. Guess what? Our pets do have souls too.
Mm.
So, yeah, but as far as, like, multiple lives or past lives type things, I was curious about this, and I had gone to someone here in Austin, and she at the end of it, she started out with, "Okay, like, what's your intention?" I'm like, "Oh, I just kinda wanna see, like, how many lives and" or not how many lives, but what did I do in the life previous to this? Well, she kind of, like, lost control because I went through 5 different past lives. And then when we got done and she's like, "Okay, well, I don't really know what to say to you because usually someone comes to me and we do one past life and we will spend an hour in that past life, but you like spontaneously went through 5 of them." And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, I knew it was me, I had a past life as a female teacher. I had a past life as a male Indian, like a brave, like maybe I was like 17 or 18. I was also like led people across the continental divide. And then I was also some kind of a organizer or leader for people that were moving their belongings in wagons they were walking next to wagons that had wheels it was very rudimentary. And I feel like it was like in the UK, in
Mhm.
that part of the world. So yeah, it was just, popping out of there, I was like, "Oh boy." She really didn't know what to say with me. She's like, "Okay, well, thank you for coming."
You have so many.
I just kinda went, "Well, I know I've been here before, okay."
She's like, "You're the Sybil of past lives.
Right, right.
I need to take a nap."
Yeah, she was kinda like, "So, what did you get out of it?" And I'm like,
Lots of past.
I'm like, I'm sorry." She goes, "No, I just never had anybody do that before." And I kinda went, "Okay."
Well, that explains why you like hiking. If you help people move things, if you're an Indian and, that kind of thing. I've done a few, and whenever I do a past life regression, it's interesting. I get insight as to things that interest me or are threatening to me in this life. Like how I was like murdered
Oh,
and died a violent death. And so, like, me not feeling part of a community, me not feeling like I belong is very visceral. And I have to like remind myself that I'm safe and that, that was a past life, that it's not this life, but you do carry the energetics of it. So it's really interesting because I wasn't just murdered in one past life, it was a few.
okay, girl, I hope you got that karma figured out.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Wow,
interesting.
that is.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun to go down it knowing that, it is a past life. It's not your life now. Like
Yeah.
but
How
it's part of
interesting.
your.
How have you so question, how have you dealt with that? Like,
Yeah, well, I I had a coach and she helped me work through a lot of it. And then it was interesting because it wasn't just a past life as a woman, it was also a past life as a man. Both of my masculine and feminine were murdered at one point. Yeah, so I mean, lots of introspection, lots of, like you said, getting into yourself, getting quiet and asking like, what am I supposed to learn here? And knowing how important it is to trust again, because I used to micromanage things and try to take control and be the one who did everything because I didn't trust that anyone else could do what I could do. And that was part of my surrendering and releasing and understanding that, yeah, that was part of my story because that's part of a couple of my past lives.
Wow. That's powerful.
It's very powerful, and it's crazy. It's crazy to look at it and get beyond it, right? Like, and it'll still come up. Like, I'll feel it, and I'll feel like I'm actually gonna be attacked. Like I'm gonna be attacked by a lion, and I'll be like, "No, I'm. This is 2025. Everything is good," and just get centered and you ask for support, you ask for help, you ask for clarity, and that's all you can do.
Wow. Wow. That's so interesting, especially if it's from a previous life and you're trying to figure out like how do I not be affected by that? And I wonder how many people in the world, right, are like doing things automatically and then kind of going, "Ooh, I don't know why I did that." You
Right,
know?
and so it gives you compassion for other when people act a certain way, if you can step back and say, "Well, I went through this in a past life, that triggered something in them, and, it's not really their fault, it's something they're working through." And what I try to do is transmute their pain. I try to help them energetically. I'll send them light, I'll send them compassion, um and try to energetically, and maybe that's part of Reiki too, is like you're taking that static and just adding love and heart centeredness to it and not trying to change it, just witness and hold space. It's like
Yeah.
that's a tough one. That's a tough one you're going through. I don't understand it completely, but we don't have to. It's just being there for your fellow person, whatever entity is struggling. We're here connected, and one person's struggle is everyone's.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I love the idea of, supporting whether you understand the situation or not, they're in need and you just support. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
powerful.
We have a lot of chances for that, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, but I just adore this time. Do you have a website that people can find your work on it and all that you're offering?
Yes, you can find me at tammyyoungmedium.com.
Awesome.
Also, you can find me on Facebook, Tammy Young Psychic Medium, Tammy Young Medium, either one of those. And then also on Instagram, I'm TY Medium.
Okay, I'm gonna follow you on
Oh,
those places
that
because
would be awesome.
I adore what you're doing, and I find a sisterhood in our connection. I really do. It's
Yeah, definitely.
I always joke. I'm like, on the other side, we're gonna have such a party, or be like, look at all the look at the sparks that we did that day, and every time someone listens or shares this, you're adding to the spark. So
That's
I
right.
adore that. I adore that metaphor. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm all about the spark.
Ditto.
And you're in Austin, so that's really wonderful. I love Austin. What a great town.
Yeah, it's wonderful here.
Although, the Georgia Bulldogs and the Longhorns, they had fun playing each other in football this season. That was fun.
How did they do?
Well, the first game, now I got to remember, the first game was home in Austin. Austin was home, and it was close. And um, what do you say? It was a call that was contentious. And some of the Austin fans threw water bottles on the field. And I was like, oh my gosh.
I do remember that. How embarrassing.
I was like, oh. So then they played again in Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in the championship game. I think the Bulldogs pulled that one off. I just get so saturated with football in my house. I'm like,
Oh,
that's
I love
enough.
that. I don't follow football, so you're way ahead of me on that. So,
Well, I try to do family activities, and unfortunately that's one of the things that I'm out of, it's like I'm outnumbered, I guess.
yes, I totally understand.
But I do have my favorite players, like Jalen Carter. He's a Georgia Bulldog, and he's a defensive lineman for the Eagles. And I got to watch him play in the Super Bowl, and I always loved watching. I cheered for him. I'm always like, "Yay, Jalen!" And then to see that the guys go to play professional and then be in the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, I was so happy for him.
That's
So that's
amazing. What a story, right? My gosh.
yeah, yeah. And so it's all fun, and I love to celebrate strength and courage and, just all the things that these young men go through and their families supporting them, like they didn't get there by themselves. They had supportive families around them. And
Yeah, absolutely.
well, I can't wait to share this with the audience. And again, Tammy, thank you so much for all your help with this. This has been great.
Well, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed this. It's been, you know, like a sisterhood. It's so easy to talk with you and just share kind of where things are at. So
Hey, I feel
thank you
the
so
same.
much.
Thank you.